It's your favorite nurse, Stephanie, and welcome to Planned Senior Moments. This is the podcast that helps you learn how to keep your parents safe, avoid unnecessary hospitalizations, and support them in aging in place with dignity and confidence. Most of my clients come to me during a time of crisis. Mom's in the hospital, things have changed drastically, and suddenly you're scrambling to come up with a plan of care. But it doesn't have to be that way. With each episode, I'll share real-life stories, expert advice, and practical tips so that you can be proactive, not reactive when it comes to senior care. Let's get started. Hello, and thank you for joining today. We have a special guest, Marcus Moran. He's an insurance broker and specializes in Medicare am I saying it right? Medicare and extended care planning?
Correct.
Oh boy, that's a mouthful. Thank you. So I do know that when I have clients who, of course, have questions, they've already enrolled. Generally, my clients are older. They've been through this process, but they have questions. But I do want to start from planning, right? And there's a certain age where people have to start considering this, and there's a good little window of opportunity. So what do you recommend to people who are between the ages of 63 and 65? What is the best time to start planning for this and reach out to a specialist such as yourself?
I would say identify as close as you can to the date that you want to stop working and start Medicare. Now, that can be difficult to pinpoint. However, the closer you are to that date, the easier it is for the professional like myself to begin the plan with you. But I always recommend that you start the process between 5 to 6 months before you retire. And notice that is not 5 to 6 months before you turn 65. That is actually before you retire, because you can go beyond age 65 and continue to work and not be on Medicare and not suffer any penalties, which is a huge question I get all the time. I'm 65. Don't I have to do something? No, unless you have no coverage or the coverage that you have is not considered credible by Medicare. So those are the only circumstances. Otherwise, most major employers or most employers have credible coverage. So you doing something at 65 isn't necessarily something you have to do unless you are planning to get on Medicare. And that's a conversation that you could have with a professional about all the factors that would say, should I stay in my plan or should I go on to Medicare?
Okay, very good to know, because this is very confusing for most people. So, now I have a question. So let's say I am retiring, but I'm still going to do some work on the side. Maybe I have a specialty. Yep. I'm doing consulting or what have you. Are you limited on your income when you decide to move on to these plans?
You're not limited on your income based on the plans, but your income can affect what you pay for some of the plans. Okay. So you're not limited on where you draw it. It's just how much. General rule of thumb is having a plan 6 months before you leave your work, whether it's now, if you're going to do consulting work, are you losing your health insurance benefits because you're going onto a part-time or a limited time schedule? Some people know. Some people can keep their benefits and still consult, so the need for Medicare can be delayed. Whereas others, the consulting work limits the amount of hours and immediately they have to go on, or it triggers them having to go on to Medicare. So yes, those are conversations that you'd want to have.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. Now, let's say you've enrolled, and walk us through what that looks like, because there's a time frame when you can make changes. And that's another thing that comes up for a lot of the clients that I work with when I refer to you or to help them through these things.
Yeah, it's daunting because it can get overwhelming to people. But again, just speaking in generalities, right? I always tell people, as a new person to Medicare, you've got one responsibility. Medicare requires that you sign up for the A and B portions of Medicare, and then the insurance professional like myself can walk you through the options after that. As an insurance professional, we are not physically signing you up for Medicare. Okay. The Part B, the A and B process, is something you as the beneficiary have to do in order to meet those requirements. The agent is not allowed to do that for you. Okay. But the sign up to Medicare is when you decide to take the Part B portion of Medicare, because A portion is automatic. You don't have to do anything to sign up for that as long as you've met the minimum requirements in terms of numbers of years of taxation that you're required to have consistently working here in the US, which 98% of people, qualify for. However, it's the B portion. It's when you actually want to be on Medicare that requires you to make a physical sign up, either doing it through ssa.gov or going to your local office or calling them directly. There's a variety of ways you could do that. Then, once you've set up your Part B date, the insurance professional can walk you through the options from that point forward.
Okay, and then next year comes up and they want to make changes or learn about new plans. I'm assuming, Marcus, people need to be following up with you every year.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's a great segue, right? The follow-up process is important because when you choose to work with a broker, you want to ask the question, what is going to be our annual, or how often are we going to speak to each other? Because if you don't ask that question, there are agents out there that will sign you up for Medicare or help you get through the initial process of getting on to Medicare, and then will feel no responsibility to connect with you again. And if you're on a plan where residual is being collected by them, they're making a residual income on zero work.
Right.
And that's not the way the industry was intended. But there are people that just sign up for Medicare, choose an agent, and think that's all they have to do. And I tell people it depends on the plan that you choose. But with all plans, generally speaking, you should be in contact with your agent a minimum of once a year to review your options in October when Medicare opens its annual window of election. That's the time when most people can have a conversation with their agent and say, these are the options available. What are we thinking about doing? And that's an easy way to have that natural 1 year conversation, which is, to me, a bare minimum.
And unfortunately, we do come across clients who are not getting that type of service. So when they're not getting the service that they feel like they need, are they stuck with that broker, Marcus, or can they change?
They can change on their own. Anyone is free to do that. The biggest problem, Stephanie, that we run into is this. Someone signs up for Medicare and maybe they have a standalone drug plan. And at the time when they signed up for it, they just went with an insurance name they were familiar with. And then over the years, the plan that they're on might continue to go up in price. But they've never really talked to anyone on an annual basis or at any point to say, am I on the best drug plan? I find this to be the most common problem, is that people will be overpaying for a drug plan by 30, 40, and sometimes even $50 a month when they can get a cheaper plan that would cover the drugs they take at a better price. So that's, to me, one of the glaring problems. And then there's always the people that choose either a Medicare Advantage plan or a Medicare supplement and have not had someone talk to them about reviewing the options with both choices on an annual basis or at any point. So it's critical because
Absolutely. Yes, they do. They change annually. Is that correct?
The Medicare Advantage options typically will change on an annual basis. The Medicare supplement plans, while there are some subtle changes to what Medicare is doing, those are a little bit more stable in a year-to-year basis, but those price points will change. Those price points can go up.
Okay, and I know you've educated me on this before. What if someone realizes, hey, I'm not getting the customer service that I need? I need to talk to Marcus, and we're not in the enrollment election period, but changes need to be made. Is that a possibility?
It depends on the type of coverage that you have. If you're with a Medicare Advantage plan, there's a limited window on when you can make those changes. Those have to be made during those timeframes. If you're on original Medicare and have a supplement, supplemental insurance can be changed at any time of the year based on a health screen or health requirements, depending on how long you've been on that particular plan. So there's different factors. However, general rule of thumb, anybody that has these questions should reach out and identify your particular circumstance. Because I talked to someone a week ago who literally said, I'm stuck with this plan. It's terrible. I'm not getting what I need. And I said, but didn't you just move here from Chicago? And they said, yeah. And I said, Medicare opens up a window where that's a life-changing event. You are open to making new changes if you want. Oh, I had no idea. Okay. And so that's a conversation that happened simply because the circumstances of questions came up that elicited that type of response. But there are many times when people assume they can't do something, and so they don't ask.
What about people who are snowbirds? What about people who come back and forth? And I ask this because sometimes, even in hospice, as a nurse in hospice for many years, when they came to Arizona, they needed to transfer and be on services here. And sometimes things changed and they had to stay here and they were not able to get back, or they're just traveling here for whatever reason. They're not a hospice patient, but they're going to be here for an extended period of time. What changes can be made? Are there rules you have to move here? Walk us through that, because we're in Arizona. This happens all the time.
Sure. So general rule of thumb on that is where someone lives or where they're actually paying taxes out of is where Medicare presumes they are residing. Okay. So if you have a Medicare Advantage plan and you are traveling around the country, there's a good chance you may not end up in a service area when you travel to Arizona that your Advantage plan covers in, say, Minnesota. Okay. So you might run into a situation where the coverage you have is not as strong in Arizona, and you might want to make some adjustments. However, if you have original Medicare with some form of a supplement, the change from Minnesota to Arizona has no impact on your coverage because it's covered the same way all over the country. However, neither one is better than the other. It's circumstantial to your situation, right? But knowing what you have and what the limitations of your travel has all goes back to that original conversation. Did you speak to someone about your circumstances and your needs and your travel before you made a decision? And if you haven't, there's still time to have that conversation, get the facts of your circumstance, and then decide, do I have options? Can I use these options? What are available to me based on my situation and based on who I've talked to?
So important, because life is busy and you don't forget about these things until it's a crisis, unfortunately. And some people aren't even aware that they should be in contact with their broker once a year, and life passes. Gosh, no one's ever called me to educate me. In the event that someone does need to make any of those changes at any time, they can call you, Marcus, and you will ask all of the pertinent questions. You will walk them through their options. And if you're outside of that window of opportunity, then how does that look for you? Do you just go ahead and schedule them during that eligibility period so that it's on the books and you contact them?
It's like putting together every single call is like putting together a mini puzzle, right? So everyone's pieces are different or unique, right? So let's find out all of your pieces, how they connect, and then find out when, if it's not now, when can changes be made? And based on your situation, are there even reasons to make changes? So let's straighten up everything in that particular call so that you can know what your options are. The worst thing you can do is assume you don't have options when you do, or assume you have plenty of options when you don't. So let's talk about that so that you know what your options are.
Okay. And Medicare, obviously, I know when to recommend clients contact you, but because I'm not part of Medicare yet, because I haven't hit the age, am I leaving anything out? Are there important questions that I'm just not thinking of to ask you?
I think that the biggest thing is when people start evaluating Medicare, and the problem that we run into, especially from the agent force, is we'll talk to a lot of people that think they know or they have done research. And you know what? I'm glad they did. Unfortunately, most of the research comes from reading Medicare rule books. And the rule book is important, right? Like any game or organization or any sport that has a rule book, you need to understand it. However, just reading the rule book doesn't always answer your individual circumstance. So I read the rule book, I read the rules, I think this is what's best for me. That might be well and good. Let's still have a little conversation and decide what's best for you and at the time frame that's appropriate, right? So I get people that call me all the time, and I might put them on a tickler file for 4 or more years from the original conversation that we had because they're not ready for Medicare. A great example, I spoke to a woman about a week and a half ago. She's 66 and she's thinking she needed to do something, but she's not leaving her work. She loves what she's doing. They love her. She's invaluable to the organization. She's not going to retire till she's 70. So I put her on a tickler to call her in May of 2029, right? Because
Wow.
that's when she's going to need my assistance. And if she needs to call me sooner, she's got a contact. But I've got a litany of people's names in random spots on my calendar where their time frame is more appropriate. But because we had an initial conversation, we can then put them into a position where they can succeed or at least know, hey, I've got someone that I can talk to when that time is right.
Yeah, because life changes. We may think we know we're working until we're 70. Like anything else in life, we make a plan and then something happens.
And again, it's like you said before, people are busy and they've got a lot going on. And there's usually one person, if it's a husband and wife, there's usually one person who manages that process. And it may not be the person turning Medicare first. So those people are invaluable too, because there's a lot of spouses I talk to that are helping their other spouse, even though they're not ready to sign up, which is still very appropriate and very realistic. So please don't hesitate making those calls because I run into it all the time. Don't think it's weird that you're calling on your husband or wife's behalf and you have questions because that's an area in your relationship that you manage and you've got to get on top of it. So again, reach out.
That's wonderful, Marcus. And I love how you're really planning out, like you're taking care of your people. I love that. And I can tell you, I hear it all the time. Something changes, there's a hospitalization, there's a medication that's ordered, and suddenly the prices
Yep.
skyrocket. And my clients say, no one ever told me this. And
Well,
it's really unfortunate.
and it happens because a lot of people don't realize how Part D plans actually work. There is a lever process to it, and it's most things that we buy in life are on a good, better, and best format. So we think that if I just spend a lot of money, I've got the best.
Right.
Unfortunately, with drug coverage, it does not work that way. Sometimes you could spend less and get more. Sometimes you need to spend more to get things at a better price, but it depends on the medications you're taking. And your example is I've run into it several times, right? Many times where someone's taking generic medications and then all of a sudden they get prescribed with a non-generic or a preferred or a tier 2 or above med, and they get sticker shock when they go to the pharmacy to get that filled for the first time and someone says, oh, that'll be $425. Whereas what's happened is on that particular drug plan, the generic medications do not impact the deductible, but the preferred or tier 2 or tier 3 or above medication immediately does. So you hit your deductible with one foul swoop, and that's why you're seeing a huge cost up front. But if you've never had that explained to you, that is why it is trouble.
And it is because a lot of the seniors that I work with, they're on a fixed income. So
Sure.
sometimes they're literally faced with, do I buy groceries or do I buy my medications? So this is so important to have the proper education, the ongoing education,
Yep.
the review of your plan, review of what's going on in your life so that every year you are on the best possible plan. Now, let's say someone is working with you and there's a significant change, but it is outside of the enrollment period. Are they allowed any changes in between election and the next enrollment benefit period?
It would depend on the type. It would depend on the type of plan they chose. But
Okay.
a good example, I've run into this one or two times where I had a client that was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and it happened in June. And we'd already made a plan change at the time we were supposed to, but the plan that we moved her to was not conducive to the Parkinson's medications that she now is required to take. In that case, you can petition Medicare and you could show them the cost before and now the cost after, and Medicare can make a ruling to open up a window for you to make a change mid-year. But it does require you to do the effort of contacting Medicare to make those windows open back up, and then the agent can help you walk through the available plans that are open to you. That's one circumstance.
Okay.
Another common circumstance that happens more often than not, it has a Medicare supplement plan, and they just received a price increase around their birthday. The price went from, let's say, $125 a month to $155 a month, right? And they're like, whoa, this is a big increase. What can I do? Because you have a Medicare supplement plan, and a supplement plan is not tied directly to the A, B, C, D letters of Medicare, the supplement plan can be changed at any time throughout the year. So you can contact other insurance providers or other supplemental providers and put in an application to get a lower rate. Of course, this will trigger an underwriting decision where you'd have to answer health questions in order to qualify, but you can make a change at any point with a supplemental insurance plan.
Marcus, it is. Yeah. And that's why people need someone like you. You're just a wealth of knowledge. And it's so refreshing because it is so confusing for most people. And when they change every year and things change as we age and things come up that we can't plan for or predict, but we need to know that we have the absolute best coverage for ourselves and our spouses. Marcus,
I appreciate you saying that. Yep.
It's just imperative. And I've seen what happens when they're not on the best plan. And I've seen what happens when someone's not following up with them and educating on the changes that should be made, or even asking qualifying questions to make sure that they are in the best program.
Yep.
So I just love what you do. And please share with us the best way for the viewers to contact you.
So the best way to connect with me, my phone number is 480-381-6867. My direct cell phone line. You can contact me and leave me a message. You can text me at the same number. You can also email me at Marcus, MARCUS, .Moran, MORAN, the number 36 at gmail.com. That's an easy way to get in touch with me. My website is actually up and running in the next 3 to 5 days, so that should be fantastic. I could send that updated information to you, Steph, when you get it. And this way here, you can promote that out as well for an easy way to connect with me that way.
Wonderful. And to our listeners, we will upload everything as well for the episode.
Perfect. Yeah, and there's just so much to it, and there's so much planning that goes into it. It's just about talking to someone, asking questions, not be afraid to ask questions, whether you're approaching Medicare age, whether you think you need to do something right now, or whether you're on Medicare, right? Or whether you're a child of someone who's on Medicare and you just don't quite understand what's happening with mom or dad's insurance plan. And you're like, I don't get it. Why are they paying so much? Trust me, there are plenty of children that I speak to that have powers of attorney over mom or dad, and they need to have questions answered because of certain circumstances, and they need someone to talk to. So all of those things are appropriate.
Wonderful, Marcus. Thank you again so much for joining us today.
Perfect. Again, I think the next time we speak, or a future conversation we could have, would be talking more about how to prepare for the care stages of life with the insurance things that are available and the changes that are happening. Lots of changes in the industry that will help promote lots of knowledge to people about how to prepare for care.
Beautiful. And that's exactly what we'll dig into on our next episode. We'll get straight to that.
Perfect.
All right, Marcus, thank you so much.
Thanks,
and thank
Steph.
you to our listeners.
Be good.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Be good. Bye-bye.